Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Gal Swisa Cohen, and on today's episode of The Israeli Bond on hmTv, my special guest, Beata Schulman, will join me for a conversation about the relationship between Israel and Poland today and how come Poland today is one of the safest countries in Europe and in the world in general for Israelis and Jews. And this is actually our second episode. Our first episode was about your childhood in Poland after World War II and how it shaped your Jewish identity. And if you haven't heard it, I urge you to go back and listen to this fascinating conversation that we had. But today I'm going to talk with you about the relationship between Israel and Poland. And I must tell you that for me as Israeli, I only been to Poland once. It was in high school when I went with my entire class to some kind of Holocaust trip, meaning that we went along all, the concentration camps and learned about the history. And this was a very moving part of my life, but it's kind of a Holocaust tourism. And I wonder, as Polish, how do you feel about that?
Thank you for having me again, Gal. So this is a very interesting topic to discuss. I think the relationship in between Poland and Israel is really centered around Holocaust tourism and how Jews perceive Poland when they come there. So you were there how many? 20 years ago, 15 years ago? How do you perceive Poland as Poland, not the Holocaust size? Do you remember anything about the country, or you just went there to study Holocaust?
So I must say that I went there to study Holocaust. It's a part of a whole program that before we were talking more in depth into Holocaust and like Holocaust sites, and then we go there and we study with our legs and hands, and then we go back and we do like another more in-depth education about that. I do remember that every once in a while, because we were teenagers, so we needed this like time off every once in a while. So I do remember that we went to one bar, like we were teenagers. So it was like a bar, but it wasn't really like, it was a restaurant, okay?
Yeah.
Like we went to a restaurant where we were singing like Hanukkah, and we went to a market. Every once in a while we had like this fun stuff, but mostly it was about the Holocaust, about all the atrocities that were there. And I must say that for Israelis, why you're doing it in your 11th or 12th grade, because it's right before the army. You need the reason why. You need the reason why you're gonna go in your prime years of your life and go maybe fight in the army or do anything else in the army. And you need this reason why. And this is the reason why, the never forget. So for me, that was the reason that I came there. And I think it was important for Israelis to come there for this reason.
Absolutely. And look, over the years, there was a lot of conversation about how those trips need to be structured. For one hand, for those trips to serve what Israel needs, which is the remembrance, strengthening the idea of why you're going to IDF after, and why you need to defend your country, and why you need to be strong.
And then never again.
And then never again. But then to balance it with, do you only teach about the Holocaust, or you teach about history of a country and history of Jews within the country? Do you spend some time to meet with Polish teenagers and try to build a dialogue and reconcile the past? So during the time when you went to Poland, I would say the trips were mostly one-sided, and some of them still are. Let's go from Holocaust to the Holocaust side, from another Holocaust side, to just get this brain of why do we need to fight for our existence, I would say. But now many of those trips are, switching a little bit. There is more dialogue in between, the sites in Poland. Let's not only visit the Holocaust sites, see the sites of Jewish life, maybe see some of the Polish culture. It's very difficult switch, and I think it needs to be done for more of the reconciliation in between countries. Poland is going through its own period of coming to terms into its own history. Poland is not only a victim of the Holocaust. We had both, victims, the righteous, and some people in the country who collaborated during the Holocaust or were perpetrators of the Holocaust as well. So those trips are super important. And it brought us into a different moment. So in the past, Israelis were only coming to see the Holocaust sites. Now, Poland became a tourist destination, which is actually great to see. I went to Poland this summer, and every single hotel that I went to, which was not close to any of the Holocaust sites. We went to mountains, we went to lakesides, and every single hotel had Israelis. And it was really great to see that even though there is still strong antisemitism in Poland, and Poland is still going through the turbulent part of reconciling with its history, Israelis feel safe to come there.
So why do you think we feel safe?
I think it's because the left-wing antisemitism is not that prominent, and it also comes from the past of Poland. There was a huge anti-Semitic campaign in 1968 after the Six-Day War. Poland was under the influence of Soviet Union, and Soviet Union sided with Arab nations. And because of the different things which were happening in Poland politically during that time, they needed somebody to blame for political and economical troubles. And they used the situation which was going on somewhere in the Middle East to, point fingers at Jews, that Jews are to blame for any troubles which are currently going in Poland. They played on that double identity and kicked almost 50,000 Jews out of Poland. And I think during the 90s and early 2000s, Poland really came to terms that 1968 and giving one-way ticket to their Jewish citizens and kicking them out of the country was not a right thing to do. And the left-wing antisemitism of blaming Jews for whatever is going in the Middle East is less prominent right now in Poland than in other countries in the West. So we do not have the, college encampments. We may have some protests from time to time.
Right, because in fact, after October 7th, actually, Poland is one of the countries that we really don't hear any protests in Poland against Jews or against Israel. So do you think that this time of the 1968, right after the Six-Day Wars, do you think this was the turning point for Poland to reconcile with their past, also reconciling the past with, Jews' history inside of Poland?
So the reconciliation moment came really in between 90s and early 2000s when people started analyzing that period of time of anti-Zionism and realizing that anti-Zionism led into something terrible that many Poles are still ashamed of. Really kicking out 50,000 of its citizens day to day, blaming them for something that was not their fault. So I think this really created a way that the protests are not being loud or visible as much as in Western Europe or in United States. I would also say it's not that anti-Israel anti-Semitism is not existing, but it exists mostly in social media and among Gen Z, because there are certain trends and, war in Israel and situation in Gaza was very complex. But I think we see more of criticism of Israel than straightforward anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism. what's prominent within the issues of anti-Semitism in Poland is still this, I would call it old-style right-wing anti-Semitism.
Yes, but it's in the very radical right, I would say. Because at the end of the day, as you said, like you've been in the summer through this like vacation when you saw Israelis just coming to Poland to have a vacation, just in regular
And you know
place.
what was really interesting? That those hotels that we stayed in were filled with, I would say, a third of them were Poles, a third of them were Israelis, and a third of them were Arab state, like Gulf state Arabs, and everybody was hanging out, and they were like really nice to one another, and that gave me a lot of hope because coming through from United States to Poland and seeing what's going on in the world, the world really does not feel safe right now for most of the Jews, and it felt really amazing to feel safe in Poland. And again, it doesn't mean that there's no anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is there. It's just the different kind of anti-Semitism is more prominent right now.
Yes, I agree with that. And as I said, because Israelis do feel more confident or more safe going to Poland, because I feel that in a way we feel that maybe because what have happened and because we feel, or at least until recent years, that the Polish government wanted to like change the narrative a little bit, that Polish people do understand what happened and like they do know the history of their country to the degree that they understand that this is not right, like that anti-Semitism does not lead you to a right way or like to a good future. But I want to ask you, because you have this super mixed identity, and I want to ask you as Jewish and as Polish, today, when you went to Poland, how did you feel? How did you feel in way of safety, and how did you feel in way of like anti-Semitism? Because you said it's like still on the surface.
So walking on the street with my kids, with my husband, I feel very safe. And on the one side is this amazing feeling of I can feel very free. But then when I go online and I go into this rabbit hole of what people are really saying, it gets very scary. Although, these are only words. They're not physically threatening. There is a lot of anti-Semitism still in Poland. I still feel a little bit betrayed by my country of, Jewish identity, again, is pushed on the side as not being as celebrated as during the time when I was, a teen in the 90s and early 2000s. And it was amazing of being Jewish, and we could publicly celebrate everything. Hanukkah was celebrated in presidential palace for almost 20 years. And now it's not.
Can you tell me a little bit about this story? Because we talked a little bit about
Yes.
it before.
So in the beginning of 2000s, there was this whole shift of acknowledging Jewish community and integrating certain Jewish customs back into, I would say, national stage. So I remember, I think it was 2006, I had a really great friend, a priest who I grew up with, and he was appointed to be chaplain of Polish president. And he was a person of dialogue, and he helped us a lot into bringing Polish First Lady to the Hanukkah celebration to Jewish community first time. And then he, together with other members of that Polish White House, they also brought president for the first time to the synagogue during Hanukkah, and then all the stages. And then president decided to invite Jewish community and started this trend of celebrating Hanukkah in the Polish presidential palace, which is the Polish White House. And it felt such an amazing inclusion and acknowledgement of Jewish tradition.
Amazing.
For one day, for one evening, invite Jewish community and light the candles. It was just a phenomenal feeling of Jews were a part of the country and just Jews being included. So that stopped this year.
This year?
This year.
What happened?
The current president decided to not invite Jewish community.
And not to light the candle in
not
Hanukkah.
to light the Hanukkah candles. And I think it's a political game because he is not, I wouldn't call him an anti-Semite on his own with his own views. But he is, playing a political game that he knows that if in the election his party can form the government, they can only form government with the far right parties. And they don't want to see Hanukkah celebration in the presidential palace. And it was really hard for Jewish community to lose that inclusion and not to feel included anymore. Again, it's not threatening our safety, but it's heartbreaking for the Jewish community.
But what I wonder is that in many cases, we see that governments or, elected officials, for political reasons, act in a certain way. Maybe it's not necessarily the way that they believe. I wonder what the word on the street is like the Polish people, where the Polish people more tend to, because not necessarily the Polish people are this way or the other.
So what I remember from growing up, and again, I left Poland in 2009. I visited.
But do you have today connection with Polish people that currently live there? What's the word on the street?
So the word on the street is, I don't think that people mind the government acknowledging Jewish community for this one particular holiday.
They don't care if they are or they aren't?
No, I think Polish people care. I think this was a nice way of including the Jewish community. And still, Polish parliament, they had a Hanukkah lighting. So the parliament did a different thing, and the Polish president decided
for political
reasons. So, and Polish people in many different ways through the years, over the last 20 years, celebrated Jewish culture. Like, for example, a Jewish festival in Krakow, Jewish Cultural Festival. In the past, there was 20,000 people raving in the middle of the Jewish square, Szeroka Street in Krakow, in celebration of Jewish culture, into Jewish music. Most of the Jewish cultural festivals and institutions there are visited by Poles to celebrate Jewish culture. So I think a lot of good things were done for Jews to feel included in Poland. But the new wave of antisemitism is a little bit disappointing, I would say. And we need to figure out how to bring it back to
what it was.
What it was.
And you think that the Polish people will be willing, to go back to?
I do. I strongly believe that there is a will. Look, I am afraid of what's going on with Gen Z across the world.
Yeah, but this is not related only to Polish people.
Yes, exactly. But in general, I think there was a lot of good things happened in the last 20 years. We got a little sidetracked by the right-wing government. We got then sidetracked by the war. Again, this left-wing anti-Semitism, which happened, it was not as strong as in Western countries. But I think it will get back on track, and our countries can reconcile and be great supporters of one another again in the future.
Because if we did it in the past, there is no reason. Actually, I think that when I look at Poland, I really look at, for me, this is an example of how things, even if they look like the relationship might look like something that would only go worse and at its lowest, it can always be better. Because from a country that was mostly Holocaust remembered and most of the atrocities at the end of the day were happening in Poland. At the end of the day, to getting to a point that in the kind of White House of Poland, you're lighting a candle. It really gives me hope, to look at the future and look at this like 1 year of not lighting a candle. Still in the parliament, as you said, they still lighting the candles. But this like bump in the way to not interrupt this great relationship with, I think. Do you agree?
Yes, look, we had almost 20 years of an amazing reconciliation between nations. So as we make 10 steps ahead to get closer to one another, and then we make 2 steps back or 3 steps back, we are still 7 steps ahead.
I agree.
So I believe that we just need to push forward and build amazing relationships in between Israeli businesses and Polish businesses. Always business partnerships bring us to a better place. We need to visit our countries. Poles love going to Israel. For most of Poles, Catholic identity is very strong, and visiting holy sites. We had in the past, before the war, we had so many Polish tourists coming to Israel, and similarly, Jews returning back to Poland to learn almost 10 centuries of Jewish history in Poland and the sad history of the Holocaust. So we have such a strong ties that we cannot get sidetracked. Even if we are making 3 or 4 steps back, we still need to push forward.
So your recipe to pushing forward, if I get it straight, is do business.
Do business together, visit each
Tourism.
other, see each other, and talk with one another. I think that builds strong friendships with any nation, not only Poland.
I totally agree. And I wanted to ask another question before we wrap up, because it's more on a personal level. So you're Polish, that you discovered your Jewish roots and your Jewish identity when you were a teen, and then you moved to the US. So you've been here for, I would say, almost 20 years now. So yes. You're also American. You currently have like 3 different identities in a way, yes. A Polish, Jewish, and American. And I also know that you're a mother of 3. And as a mother, one of the most important things that I feel is that we get to shape the identity of our kids. And I wonder how you want to shape the identity of your kids who were born here, right?
Yes.
So what would you want, on which values or which identity you want to inherit to your kids?
So my kids are true global citizens, but I think their main identity is Jewish. They attend Jewish day school. They learn Hebrew as their second language. I'm trying to very, very strongly to teach them Polish as well, but I think their Hebrew is currently better than Polish. But we try to visit both countries. And of course, we visit Poland much more because grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins are there. But we try to go to Israel, maybe not equally, but at least every 5 years or so. So they build their both identities very, very strong. Look, their religious identity is Judaism, but I want them to be aware of the traditions of the other part of family. So it's not like we celebrate those traditions, but I want them to be aware of what other members of family may be celebrating during this particular time in the season of holidays. So shaping both identities and creating a balance of which identity is stronger, it's a really difficult task. But look, I'm trying my best for them to have the beauty of the variety of the identities they carry.
This is so beautiful. Like you took your mix of cultures and you just inherited this mix. You don't need to, you just can live with everything inside you. And it's beautiful saying. Okay, so before we wrap up, I'm going to ask you, this is a surprise. So before we wrap up, I'm going to ask you a few very, very short questions. Please,
Sure.
Please say whatever comes to your mind first. And let's see. Okay, are you ready? Are you
Absolutely.
nervous?
Yes, I don't know what you prepared.
I know.
I'm scared.
Okay, first, Tel Aviv or Jerusalem?
Jerusalem.
Okay, great answer. I also love Jerusalem. Second, what is the best comfort food? This soup inside of a bun that usually like you get to sip in Poland, or New York pizza?
Soup. Polish identity over here. Soup above everything else.
Okay, so third question and last question. If you can mention only one thing that you miss the most in Poland and you would want to take into your American life now, what would it be?
Food.
Oh,
I miss Polish food. Mushroom soup. We don't have those.
inside of a bread.
Yes, inside of a bread.
I agree. And especially today in this cold day with
Cold
snowy
weather.
outside, especially.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Beata, for joining me
you.
today for this fascinating conversation and the first episode that we had together. So thank you so much for everything.
Thank you so
you. Thank you. And thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Israeli Bond on hmTv. I appreciate my guest, Beata Schulman, for sharing some insight about the relationship between Israel and Poland and how come today Poland is one of the most safest countries in the planet for Israelis and Jews to stay in. And if you enjoyed exploring the information, history, and stories of today's conversation, be sure to check out our other podcasts here on hmTv. Please subscribe, share, and stay connected for more engaging conversations. Until next time, take care and be well.